Look at all the different pages that I have. Okay. Get everything set up so I can see comments. All right. Look at all the different pages that I have. Okay. Shut that off. There we go. And then over here, give me just a second. Oops. All right. Let's see here. Hello, coffee lovers. This is Jose Alanis with Third Day Coffee Seguin, and this is God Country Coffee coming at you live Friday night. Give me just a second here to set up all my things so that I can see comments. If you are watching us and you do see the StreamYard, it says if you're gonna that I'm using StreamYard, and if you don't click on the little link that says StreamYard.com/Facebook and give them permission, I see your comments, but I don't know who they're coming from. They just come across as blind comments. So on that note, if you are watching online, please shoot me a message. Let me know that our volume is good to go. And I would appreciate that. And then I'm going to, okay, I can see that now. And then I can see this one now, and I can see these ones. Okay, folks, tonight we have a good show. I am going to interview a fellow veteran, a fellow podcaster, and we kind of have the same thing. We're just trying to help people. So Keith McKeever is I'm going to let him introduce himself and talk about the military service like I always do. But first, I want to talk about Third Day Coffee a little bit. This weekend, we're going to launch our Valentine's Day package. So be looking for that on the website. On our website, on thirddaycoffeeseguin.com, you can catch all the podcasts, all the old podcasts. You can get us on Amazon. You can download the different episodes. We recently just asked if people wanted to be on the show, and we're booked clean through May, I think. I don't know, something like that. I think we have like one more date in April or March. I'm sorry, we're into March. Anyway, so take a look at that. We roasted it today, so get your orders in. Our coffee is unique because we use mesquite. It's really good coffee. It starts out as good coffee. Our mission is to be able to do work in our community, Christ-like work, to help anybody. I kind of tend towards veterans because I'm a veteran, but we really want to make an impact on the veteran suicide epidemic that we have in this country, and we also and just the civilian sector too. There's so many people that are suffering, especially during this pandemic. People have been isolated, and it just anxiety goes up, and there are things that they deal with, and so we want to make an impact overall. But my first I guess love, or whatever you want to call it, is veterans. And my guest today is also, I'm going to go ahead and bring him on, and I'll finish my introduction. Hello, Keith.
Hello.
All right. So welcome to the show. And I'm just finishing up my intros. Again, if you are watching and the volume sounds good and everything, just send us a message. Let us know. And that we would appreciate that very much. Our coffee, every bag of Isaiah, which is our medium roast that we sell, $1 goes to lfmissionsinc.org or LF Missions Inc. And their website is lfmissions.org. And they are a Christian outfit that they own a farm in Sierra Bueno, Honduras, which is where I get my coffee beans from. And they are basically trying to lift this community up with their nonprofit. Some of these people don't have sanitation. Some of them don't have running water in their house. Some of them have wood burning stoves with no exhaust. The carbon, whatever comes off of there, stays in the house because they don't have flumes and things like that to go outside. And so they're part of their mission. And some of you guys know that follow me that I just launched my birthday fundraiser today for that. We're trying to raise $500 for that outfit. So that being said, I want to give a shout out to my brother, JD Tierney, for the awesome U.S. Navy hat with this awesome leather patch. Thanks, brother. Appreciate the hat. And without further ado, Keith, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Tell us what led you to join the military, what branch you joined, and what you did in the military.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start by actually saying two things. Your medium roast, going by the name of Isaiah, that's actually the name of my oldest child. So that's pretty neat. I didn't know that. And second thing, you mentioned Valentine's Day. I'm just going to make a PSA for all the men out there listening. You heard it here first. Get whatever you're going to get your significant other. You might want to go ahead and start getting that now. I know how us guys tend to be sometimes. So, you heard it from me first, I guess. The first warning. So, me and my military career, I grew up in a small Midwestern community, small group of friends, grew up out in the country. Military is always something that is in the back of my mind that I could do, but I never really thought I would do it. And I ended up going to a small junior college, got an associate's degree in law enforcement, and wanted to be a cop. And I didn't really know why. I still to this day don't really know why, but I just want to, I think, really to help people and just serve and protect and stuff like that. But when I got my associate's degree, I was only 20. And I also knew that growing up in the country, I was going to probably end up working for a big city. And the idea, growing up in a very small town and just even living in the city and, the whole idea of like growing up was kind of scary. So I was like, man, I don't know if I want to just, apply for these police departments or what I'm going to do. And then in February of 2006, an Army recruiter called me and I talked to him for 45 minutes to an hour and kind of got the ball rolling. And my stepdad came home and he was a Vietnam vet from Air Force Vietnam vet. And so I'm talking to him and he's like, look, man, forget the Army. Do you want to sleep in the mud, in the dirt? And I'm like, not really. That doesn't sound that appealing to me. And he goes, man, you should think about the Air Force. So one thing led to another. Went to an Air Force recruiter, MEPS, ASVAB, all that stuff. And I really hadn't made up my mind. And it was right maybe mid-March of that year, a recruiter calls me and goes, look, man, I got a guy that broke his leg. He was going to be security forces, so he's going to be a cop. There's one of you, kind of on your short list. He goes, do you want to go in April? And I was like, are you serious? Like, I gotta tell you today. He's like, yeah, well, I need an answer pretty quick. So I said, okay, well, let me think about it, Sergeant. And a few hours later, I called him back. I said, man, if I'm going to do this, let's freaking do it. I'll take the slot. I got nothing else to do. Like, I'm working 30 hours a week, not sure what my future holds. I'm in this no man's land of life. So that's how I ended up in. Went active duty, Air Force, security forces. And, it was an interesting experience. I knew before I even got to my first duty station at Yokota, Japan, that I was going to be deployed. So pretty much immediately, as soon as I got there, turned right around and headed to Iraq. I was at a place called Camp Bucco. It was a prison camp. So we were there as prison guards. That was just about 8 months, give or take a few days. Was there, came back. A couple months later, they sent me down on a temporary duty down to Manta, Ecuador, which was awesome for 6 months. Came back, PCS to Scott Air Force Base, and deployed to Balad from there. And that was most of my career. I was in a little over 5 years before I ended up getting out. So there's a lot of experiences there that were a lot of fun.
Yeah, my dad's an Air Force. He was an Air Force vet, and my uncle is an Air Force retiree. And so when I joined the Navy, man, they were both ticked off. They were doing their best to talk me out of it. But the year that I graduated, which is 89, it's 1989. I'm not that old, but 1989. The Air Force had a freeze on recruiting. And so I went down, the guys said, well, just, they'll fix this they'll straighten it out. Just keep coming every Friday when you get off of school, come by the office and check in. I'm like, okay. And so I kept doing that. And I mean, I was middle of the summer, I was out of money and I needed to go somewhere. And so I went in one day to check. And this particular day I went, man, the lights were out. There was nobody there. And I turned around, and there's this old crusty chief, sitting in the doorway inside of a building where all at that time in San Antonio, all the main recruiters were in the same building across the street from MEPS. And I was sitting there smoking a cigarette, we offer the same stuff the Air Force does. And I'm like, yeah. And then, man, I went home and I had to tell my dad and my uncles that I had signed up for the Navy. And I don't regret it. I love the time I was in. My only regret, of course, I think everybody has the same regrets, but my only regret was getting out. And I don't know if you dealt with the same. I always say hindsight's 20/20, but at the time I couldn't see past my nose, man, much less anything else.
Yeah. Some regrets. Sometimes you think about different things, and you're like, man, it'd be awesome to do some of that cool tactical stuff again. I'm a few pounds heavier now than I was then. My body wouldn't hold up like that, but there's other parts of it, being a supervisor and the late nights, the long hours, the way you're treated sometimes. I don't want to say that to make it sound bad, but anybody who served knows what I'm talking about. The hurry up and wait, you got to be somewhere at 0900 hours, and next thing you know is as a young E3, you're being told to be there at 06. Yeah. And you're sitting around waiting for 3 hours for something that's a 15-minute meeting. Some of that stuff that you don't want to go through any of that stuff again. But that transition period is definitely interesting. I was kind of looking forward to it, kind of bummed, but it is what it is. So
I want to backtrack just a little bit. I always start my show out giving all the gratitude that I can to my Lord and Savior Christ Jesus. My business wouldn't be that. My life wouldn't be where it's at. My dad came to Christ just a few weeks before he passed, and it was shortly after that I realized that I hadn't really committed to God, and I made that commitment. And so I thank God. I'm very grateful for everything He's doing. He's blowing up our business. It's insane. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. Just tell me a little bit. I know that just in our conversation that you grew up around that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would consider myself more maybe spiritual than religious. I grew up in a Lutheran church. My grandmother was a superintendent of the Sunday school for 30 something years, 30 to 35 years. So growing up, my parents were both in business. They were both realtors like I am now. And, so they were busy doing open houses and stuff on Sunday. So I would go to church and Sunday school with grandma. All my cousins were super close. We'd all go to grandma's house on the weekends. So we're pretty close-knit family there in those terms, where we just all hang out. We were always at church, Sunday school, or doing something there, vacation Bible school, all that fun stuff. So.
All right. So down the road, you transition out of the Air Force. And then what happened after that?
Well, when I got out, actually I was unemployed for almost a month, not really sure what was going to happen. I know there's a lot of people that kind of get in that boat, like, gee, when am I going to get a job? Where is it going to be? What are the hours going to be? What's it look like? Whether you serve, 5 years or 20, like, you just don't remember what that was like in the civilian world. So I actually ended up selling furniture, got hired by a local a national brand furniture, but their local store here. And actually, transition for me, I think, was easier. And I don't know if those guys really know, or if I've ever really told them, but we had one guy in the warehouse, so we had 2 managers, and there was 2 sales guys. That was it. And we were responsible for unloading the trucks. And when the warehouse guy wasn't there, we loaded furniture for people. We sold the furniture. We moved things around. We dusted. We cleaned all that. So, I was spending 70 hours a week with these guys in a very small group. So we were just sitting around, eating lunch together, working together, talking, getting to know each other's families, all that stuff. So a lot of that close knit, feeling that you have in the military, I was getting the same thing, and we became friends. One of the guys I work with, I kind of consider him an older brother, and I don't think he really quite understands, what that friendship and that bond really did for me in that period. Because I look back now and I see stories of people really struggle with transition, and I realize I got really lucky. I had like the perfect setting to be in to transition and get back, because I was working so much, but I had that same support structure there. So, and we, go out for a beer every now and then afterwards. So it wasn't just all strictly work, but that really helped quite a bit. And then after that, I ended up getting into real estate. So
That is a big deal, man, because a lot of times when people transition out of the service, the biggest thing is that you no longer have that mission. You no longer have that camaraderie. Your brothers and sisters that are to your right and left of you, supporting you with whatever it is you're doing. And so that's really unique, because I know a lot of people that I talk to, most time when they transition out, that's the biggest thing. Like they struggled for a long time trying to find that. And so that's really awesome, man, that you were able to transition right into a scenario like that where you had kind of what you had in the military.
Yeah, it helps quite a bit. Because like you said, we've all seen it. It doesn't take long to find stories of people who didn't have that and kind of float out there in no man's land for a little bit until they figure it out.
Yeah. So how long did you do furniture before you got back into real estate, or before
I
you
was, I guess, just a little over a year. My youngest was born premature, and the company I was working for kind of wanted everybody to work up through the sales and then get into management and go on to take over as assistant manager in another store. And at that point in time, it was another store in another location. You couldn't stay in the same building. So with him being born premature, unknown medical issues, things like that, and all my family here, we felt like, okay, the support structure for family is here. I don't want to move 3 states away or 5 states away and know absolutely nobody. That idea was scary, especially with a 2-year-old at the time and one with unknown issues that we were going to face. We now know that he's too darn stubborn to have any issues, and but so we kind of talked about it, didn't know what to do, and talked to my mom, and because she's the only one that's left. My father died when I was 16, so I've got a stepfather in the picture, and so I kind of talked to my mom and my stepdad, and my mom's like, well, get in real estate with me. And she had been trying to recruit me since I was little. One of these days you're going to be a realtor just like me. And I always said, BS, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. And, at that point in time, I'm like, you know what? That's not bad. I'll take this leap of faith and go into business, because I knew that at that time she had about 25 years or so in the industry. And I said, well, if anybody's going to teach me the right way and have a vested interest in training me and making sure that I hit the ground running as best I can, then it's your own mother. So I just I signed up for the real estate classes. It was like 2 weeks in a row, 6 days a week, like almost like 10, 12-hour days. I mean, they were very intense, very long, short, coursework. And I put in my 2-week notice, and that Sunday, I worked like a full week. That Sunday was my last day, and then that next Monday morning, I was throwing on a business attire again, but I was going somewhere else to learn about real estate. So I got, went through that process, and here I am just shy of 8 years later.
Wow. I'm going to say hello to Carrie and Richard Kaufman, and looks like Lane hit us up, and my friend John Grantham, and a few others. Just want to say hi to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We're just getting started here. I got to do a plug for my coffee because I just roasted today. And so today I'm drinking, this is a shock for those of you who follow me. I'm drinking Revelation. And Revelation is our light roast high calf. And ever since we came up with the recipe for my buddy Chris Goldsmith, I myself have been addicted to it. And so I rarely drink anything else. I drink all my coffee when I roast, just to, for quality purposes. But when I have a full cup, it's the Revelation. And I've had people that have left the other huge monster military-owned coffee company for the revelation. And so anyway, there's that. Okay, so you've been doing this for 8 years, and what is on your horizon? I mean, what are you looking to do now? What's the next chapter?
Well, I plan on doing the same thing I'm doing because I love real estate. It's done more for me than I could ever possibly imagine. So I plan on continuing on to do that. But there's other things that pop up, and one of them has been my podcast. And I guess a little backstory on that. So, as a vet, you kind of just naturally joined Facebook groups. And just like most of us out there, we're probably in 15 or 20 of them. And as I sat back and watched my Facebook news feed over and over again, I realized that like certain issues, certain problems kept reoccurring. Different people, same problems. And it was, drug and alcohol abuse. It was, maybe domestic violence, PTSD, VA disability claims. I noticed in a lot of groups, being a realtor, in kind of that, VA loan type space and real estate related veteran groups, people were having credit score issues, and, became apparent, budgets and other simple things and fixing credit. So I'm like, man, there's a lot of issues, but the same, 5 or 6, 7 just kind of kept popping up. So, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I like music, but I prefer when I'm driving, half an hour to an appointment or something, I'll put on a podcast, especially if it's like half-hour one. I know I got a 45-minute drive. I'm going to try and find something about 45 minutes and just listen to it. And I find it, beneficial to just kind of learn something, listen to something rather than just music. I just prefer that. So I kind of put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, okay, there's issues and I'm passionate about helping people, and then podcasts. So I'm like, why the heck not start my own and just talk about these issues and, maybe help somebody. So I thought the Battle Buddy podcast, because finding a name is a pain in the, what, for me, because I'm like, I don't have a, product, like yours makes perfect sense. But I didn't have anything to sell or anything like that, nothing tied to it. I just want to do something out of the kindness of my heart and just talk to people and maybe offer some nuggets of information. And then I was like, you know what, Battle Buddies. I may have been Air Force and everything's wingman, but, in security forces, we kind of had battle buddies and stuff like that. And I'm like, it kind of resonates with Army and a few other things. So I'm like, that's perfect, because I want people to know that they're not alone, no matter what they're walking through, that they've got somebody, whether they're listening to me and I'm that person, or they need to go find somebody, or there's another battle buddy out there for them. Somebody's out there. Somebody else has been in your shoes. Somebody's there willing to help you, give advice, or hold your hand through a process. So it's kind of a natural fit, Battle Buddy podcast. And like I've told you before the show, and I've mentioned on mine a few times, not to make it sound graphic, but if I can hit on a subject and help somebody take a needle out of their arm, or put down a bottle, take the gun out of their mouth, fix their credit, or get themselves on a path to financial freedom and eliminate some of those stressors that are sending them down that path. I'm not a fan of the whole 22 a day, thing and all the push-ups and stuff, but we've got to end that. And those are the stressors that cause that. So if we can provide the resources, maybe it'll save a life. And I don't care how long I do this. If it saves one person's life, then it's all worth it.
Yeah, and you are so on point right there. So many veterans are suffering. I know that civilians suffer too. My wife has posted publicly on her Facebook page before about the struggles that she had years ago with depression and suicide and stuff like that. And so I know that it's not uniquely a military problem, but I think it's amplified with the fact that we're in the longest war that the United States has ever been in. And I think that our country, our government is catching up. I think they're getting there as far as helping our vets who are having problems. But I know that a lot of guys, they don't ask for help. And so it's left up to people like you. And I know Carrie's watching. Carrie does a lot of stuff also. She does a lot of intervention stuff that is way beyond my capabilities at this point. But that's so important, man, that we just keep pushing that message out that, man, you're not alone. Somebody's always willing to listen. We can help you somehow. And if I can't help you personally, I know somebody who can. And so I think that's, man, I mean, I think you're just you're on something big here. And I think you're going to find that your podcast is going to blow up.
Well, I mean, I certainly hope so. But the whole idea is that it helps somebody, and I know there's a bunch of us that are really in that same space, and I could sit here and rattle off 5 or 6 names, but I won't. I know one of them was mentioned earlier. Is watching this for a little bit ago, but yeah, the more of us that talk about it and talk about these issues, then there's more places for people to hear, and if they hear it, then they know that they're not alone and that there's a way out. And the more resources we can provide, the better. I mean, my website's got a bunch now. There's a bunch of holes in it. It's still a work in progress trying to fill that out. So I'm always looking for resources or information or inspiration to put things on there to support veteran businesses or information, links to different things. So it's all about just trying to honestly just hope at some point in time the right person either hears an episode or watches me on YouTube or just stumbles across my website somehow and just finds what they need. I'll probably never know about it, but I'm sure at some point in time it'll happen. So just the same as, as your podcast, I'm sure somebody's going to hear one of your episodes and take the steps to get on the right path finally, whatever that looks like for them.
So how did you even get started? I mean, because I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm only 8 episodes into this, and I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go. But what was that? What was that thing? Did you go on somebody's podcast? Did you hear something? Did you see something?
Actually, this is the first podcast I've been on as a guest. I just listened to them, and I just decided it was early January of last year. I was like, I'm going to do this. I just went and got a microphone. I already had the laptop, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to kind of fumble my way through, and finally came up with the name. I think it was middle of the summer. I kind of came up with the name and recorded, got the first couple episodes. I was going to try and get like 3, 4, or 5 of them before releasing, but the first one I did was with a guy I know locally, Jeff Sykes, and his was powerful, and he had an event going on, and I'm like, well, I got to get this out, man. So get to this word out about this fundraiser to help multiple vet organizations here in our area. And it's so far, I don't have a whole lot of listeners, but it's so far, by and large, the most listened to episode I've got. And it's powerful and it's great. And it was like an amazing launch. But yeah, it's been a work in progress. There's not a lot of resources that give you a good blueprint. It was kind of, fumbling through the dark, and I just released my 6th episode the other day. So you're actually a little bit ahead of me because I had, one in August. I think the second one was in October, and then we did one in November, and then didn't have another one until January. So consistency has been a pain, but I've kind of gotten to the same way you are. I'm going to start doing mine on Wednesdays and every other Wednesday, and try and be more consistent and refine things. And there's been people. I'm a member of the Veteranpreneur Tribe and the Warrior Council on Facebook, and there's been some people in there that I've talked to many times that have been really helpful, giving me advice from scheduling to pre-show interviews and things like that, just to make things easier because they've been through it. They've got some podcasts of their own. So I am open ears. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm fumbling through it, but I have this mindset of my worst episode has already been recorded. Whatever one that is, I just keep that in my mind. I've already recorded the worst one. And, all I'm going to do is then every one I release is just going to be a little bit better. I'm going to learn from it and make it better. But to me, it's all about the content, really. I mean, you got all the production stuff that you can do if you want to or not. But the content's what's important. Does it resonate with somebody? Is it valuable? And does it, send somebody on an actionable plan?
Yeah, I've had some issues with the tech side of it. But ultimately the content, man, is what really gives all the meat. I mean, it's great to have all the stuff around it. Ryan Hunt just chimed in. Thanks, brother, for watching. but yeah, uh, I didn't know what I was doing, man. I just researched some stuff, and from a biblical standpoint, what I've learned about surrendering my life to Christ is that somebody who's 2 days ahead of you can help you. Somebody who's 1,000 days ahead of you can help you. Somebody who's 20 years ahead of you can help you. And you can do the same for the guy that's behind you. So if you're literally one step in front of the guy behind you, you can still reach back. You can move forward. And uh, and so I think that's something that we have to be mindful of is that, and I know we're proud. A lot of veterans are proud. I don't ever give a fellow veteran a handout. I may give you a hand up, uh, any way that I can. But it doesn't matter how where we're at in the game. There's always somebody who's going to be a few steps ahead of you, a lot of steps ahead of you, and there's going to be people behind you. And so, one thing I have learned, political climate, and everything that's going on in our country and our world, is that we're taught to do this in the military, and it doesn't matter what branch of service you're in. You are broken down as an individual in boot camp, and you are reconstructed with a team mindset. And so, uh, with that team mindset comes accountability. And not only am I accountable for myself, I'm accountable for the man who's to the right of me, the woman who's to the left of me, and they're accountable for me. And so, I think that what you're doing with your podcast uh, just falls perfectly in line with all that.
I couldn't agree more. I think what I'm going to totally butcher the saying, but something about all high tide rises all ships or something like that. And I feel like there's a handful of us that are in that space that I'm aware of. 3, 4, 5 different podcasts. We're all kind of talking about the same things, maybe a little different angles, but it's all with the same intent of helping people and just providing value. And you put that value out, you get that value back. It's some way, shape, or form. I mean, you're right about people that have been doing it longer. Travis Johnson, who runs the Nonprofit Architect, him and I've had a handful of conversations, and I think he's like 80 episodes in or something like that. He's got it all figured out compared to where I'm at, and I've learned so much from him. Just like I said earlier, like from scheduling and putting things out there on the page, and he's got a guide and stuff like that he's working on that really helps podcasters. So you got to network and reach out and talk to people and see what kind of value they can bring. I picked up some nuggets from people that probably don't even realize it. So
Absolutely. So I'm going to put a plug in for Ryan real quick. They're putting together, him and Richard and several others are putting together the next Veterans Summit Social Summit, but it's going to be on mental health, and it's in April. And Ryan, if you're still listening, in the comments, will you please throw up the link to that particular event? But that in mind, what kind of resources do you right now offer some of the people that listen to your podcast or will listen to your podcast?
Well, my show's been on a handful of different things. Resources on my website. I've got some things on there, about links to the VA, some things about credit and building credit, budgeting, stuff like that. Of course, I don't have it up right now. I'm trying to remember some of the other pages that are on there, but I'm just trying to fill out just whatever information I can. Last 2 things I just did, and they're basic framework done at this point, is find a pro, and I can't remember what I named the other one, but one of them is for service-based businesses. The other one is for like an e-commerce business. So my intent is to just have different categories. You can click on it and there'll be a Google map right there, and you can just zoom in and find a business on whatever category it is, anywhere in the country. So especially like the e-commerce or, brick and mortar stores, retail stores. I don't know if you're in Seattle, Washington, and you want to find a veteran-owned business. Hopefully someday I'll have some good options there, or Albuquerque or whatever. And, just a free place to advertise them. It's just a Google link. It'll go right to their Google thing, but it's just a free thing that I can set up pretty easy. And and then maybe help direct some traffic to some people's websites. Same thing for
Yep.
service providers, and just free business shout out. Like I said, I've got mental health resources, the ones I find, some nonprofits, other things like that. I'm just trying to fill out some different pages with some links and some information so they can come find it, search what they want. It's nothing elaborate, but maybe they'll find the resource they want. So any ideas are welcome. I'll say that. You've got to scrolling down there at the bottom, battlebuddypodcast.net. So if anybody has ideas, go there, contact me, send me the website or the Facebook page of whatever resource or company you think that I should feature on there, and I'll reach out to them.
I don't know if you're familiar with Jared Letterman. He's in the Vetpreneur tribe, and he's got a little icon that looks like Kenny from South Park.
Okay, I think I've seen him now. I don't know him, but I think I've seen that scrolling through.
He's a Marine Corps veteran, and he put together, I think it's still in beta, but he put together this thing where veterans who had businesses could get on there and list all the what they do, what they offer. And I know there's several other things too that do the same thing, but you might just reach out to him, and who knows, man, maybe network something and be able to do something, where you can get some more. One of the things, like I had a situation a while back where there was an individual that had posted some alarming things on his site, on his page or whatever. And I don't know how I got involved in that, but the guy ended up messaging me. And so I was really, really like on my heels because I didn't know what to do. And I didn't even know who to ask. And so that's the first time that I asked Carrie about, that's when I found out that she did that quite a bit. And then in that process, I met Doc Jocelyn, Dave Doc Jocelyn, and he's a CIS certified, which is, suicide intervention stuff. And so he's actually given me the information to take the course to get certified also at assist, because listen, it's like anything else, man. If you're a mechanic, the more tools you have, the better you are to fix anything that comes your way.
Absolutely. Actually, all of us as vets, I think, should probably take something like that, because you never know when your battle buddy, reaches out to you and says, man, I'm having a hard time, or you see something that starts to, go down that alarming path, trends on Facebook or something like that. If you're trained to deal with it and trained to spot it, you might actually spot it. Because I'm sure if you look at some of the people who are taking their lives, they've probably left some clues along, at least at different points, that something was wrong in some cases.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of influences have you had leading up to this? Aside, I mean, I always ask people that, like, what was your biggest influence, getting involved, getting in the military and all that stuff. And for me, it was easy. My dad walked on water. He wasn't Jesus, but he was pretty close to walking on water. And I thought of him that way. I held him in that regard to the very last breath that he took. And I still think of him in that respect. But who are some of the huge influences that sort of gave you this sense of, I've got to help my brother and sisters out?
Ooh, I don't know. That's a good one. I think some of it's just in my nature, just to want to help people, and seeing all those things on Facebook. And I was like, if I can just talk about it and get the right guest and the right person hears it at the right time. But a big influence in my life was definitely my grandmother. She was the superintendent of Sunday school and all that. But more than that, I mean, she was the kind of person that volunteered for everything. It was whether church related or not. She was always on the go, always something going on. And I didn't realize it. She passed away a little over a year ago. And I didn't realize until she was gone how much that, her volunteering and how much I saw that as a child, because I was, over there on Sundays and stuff like that. And everybody in my family knows how much my grandmother was giving back to the community here and there and everywhere. So I didn't realize really that my volunteer work was kind of inspired by her. It didn't dawn on me until she was gone. because on top of this, I'm involved with, the Honor Flight program. We've got a hub here, Greater Peoria Honor Flight, and I got involved with that. That was really the first thing I did veteran related. Is I got out in 2011. I think it was about 2 years later, 2 or 3 years later, I saw the documentary, and I was like, man, that's really cool. They're taking World War II vets to DC. Like, that's awesome. Free of charge. Like, these guys totally deserve it, man. I can get behind this mission. And then, I was really inspired that night and honestly didn't do anything about it. It was like 6 months to a year later, it popped back up on Netflix, and I watched it again, and I was like, something drove me to get on my phone, and I'm Googling, and I'm like, oh, hey, there's a Peoria hub. This is awesome. So I went and signed up 4 or 5 months later. That next spring, it would have been, I think, spring of 2014, maybe 15. The years are kind of blurry now, but I finally got an email invite to show up for pre-flight dinner and all those things. Actually, it was 4 or 5 events that weekend for that first flight. So I thought, I want to get involved in something, not to talk bad about the American Legion and the VFW because I'm a member of both, but none of their programs really struck me as something I wanted to get involved in. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, I can do that, a couple of times a year, whatever. So I signed up for an event, World War II reenactment at a local park. It was on a Sunday afternoon. And I signed up for the pre-flight dinner that we do for all the vets the night before flight. Then I signed up for the flight day morning, which is getting at the airport at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And then come back at like 6:30 at night and then be there till almost midnight for the welcome home and bring these guys back. So I figured if I want to figure out what this program is about, I'm going to figure it out in one weekend. This 3-day period, I'm going to figure this out. I show up at that park, and it had rained all morning. They weren't really doing any reenactments. There was no guests there, and I find this tent, and I find 2 guys standing there. And I come up and introduce myself as the new volunteer, not know what to expect. And we sat there for, I think, 2.5, 3 hours, and they were telling me everything about Honor Flight. These guys had gone on the flights. They had been guardians. They had been bus captains, and I was hooked instantly. And I was like, man, I was so excited, and after that event, I just kept signing up and being self-employed. It was natural to be able to be able to schedule out a couple of weeks in advance and be able to go to a local firehouse or a diner and just sign guys up, and do certain things like that. And I don't know what the count was, but I'm sure I was a couple of dozen events in within a year and got hooked. And I've had something to do with fundraising and signing up. And I took over last year as the Guardian training team leader right before COVID hit, and we ended up not having any flights, unfortunately. But we'll cross our fingers that this next year is good. We'll see how things progress. I have no idea, but it's a passion. I instantly felt welcomed by everybody. I love everybody there. They're like a family to me. I've missed them a lot this last year, and so that really got my volunteering going. And I think that just kind of ended up spilling over into this podcast of like just another way to help.
That's I'm going to say hi real quick to people. Robert Broussard, he's my Army brother that goes to church with us, and my cousin Joseph Mendez, who's a Marine Corps veteran. He was there when we, I guess, moved into Iraq. And back to what you were saying, it's in our nature. We volunteered for the military, so it's not hard.
Yeah.
To volunteer for other things.
I have my wife would be the first one to tell you I'm guilty of volunteering for things. I get into a lot of things, from my HOA to serving on committees and stuff at our Association of Realtors. I find a way to get myself involved in lots of different things.
Yeah, and we're just, I know from an employment standpoint, people that I've spoken to, my current employer, I work for the NSA. As a contractor. My company is a private company, and the guy who hired me is a full bird retired Army colonel. And his boss was his superior officer when they were on active duty, and he was a full bird. And so the idea that we served, it really does lead us to different paths. It opens doors for us that, you're taught a different work ethic. You're taught, and I know not everybody that's in the military comes out with the same work ethic. I understand that.
Definitely a good generality, though.
Right. But for the most part, if you took it serious, if you were there because you wanted to be there, you came out with some skills. In fact, a lot of times entrepreneurs don't understand. There's a lot of skills that we got in the military that we don't even know we have. We just do things. I mean, I still get up before the alarm goes off. Uh, that's weird, but sometimes I turn it off and go back. But
That is a little weird. Yeah.
but the fact that I get up, and you got to get up and of course, a lot of us don't shave anymore, but you're used to routine. You like the routine. There is a whole set of skills that we have, because in order to be an effective leader, you have to be an effective follower, and so I think that that the platforms that we're using as a podcast, we're kind of a leader in some sense, and people will look to you. I hope they look to me for some sort of spiritual guidance, because I love to talk about God. I love to talk about my walk with Christ. Um, and even if you don't think you're doing it, you might be leading somebody. You might have a conversation with somebody, and you might lead them, like you talked about earlier. You might lead them away from a needle in their arm. You might lead them away from drinking themselves to death or putting a gun in their mouth. And so it's a responsibility, and we have a responsibility, not just to one another, but to the public in general. 3% of the population joins the military. And if that doesn't say a lot about us to begin with, I don't know what does. But
that's a good point. I think that we've got to look after ourselves. I don't want to say that America as a whole doesn't care about veterans, because they do. But in some cases, it seems like they don't. I mean, they care enough, but not enough. In other cases, they care a lot, which is great. But sometimes I feel like we're on our own. We got to fight our own battles. We gotta be together. We can't leave guys out there alone. We can't leave people on the battlefield. We don't do it on the battlefield. Why do we leave people alone back here at home? It's sad, from people suffering from substance abuse issues or just alienating themselves, whatever. We've got to do something. And I applaud the people that are out there doing it in their own little way. I don't know if you subscribe to it, but I subscribe to Vet TV, and I think it's absolutely hilarious. Maybe not for everybody, but it's absolutely hilarious. I guess you got to get the humor, right? You probably had to have served or been around veterans to get the humor. But I love the fact that after every episode, they say something to the effect of, what are you doing? Get off your butt, pick up your phone, and call a battle buddy. And I'll be the first to admit I'm guilty of not checking in on my battle buddies enough. I've checked in on a few here and there, but I could do it more. I mean, we could all do it more. You just check on somebody, drop them a message on Facebook or something,
I'm going to use what you just said to lead into something. Have you heard Bullets to Beans podcast with Dave Doc Jocelyn?
I don't know if I've heard that one or not. To be honest with you, I think I follow about 25 or 30 veteran podcasts, and I haven't been through them all yet. There's not enough time in the day for that, but I'm slowly getting there.
Yeah, so I would definitely look him up. His podcast is called Bullets to Beans, and he's got a web. He was a combat medic for 20 years. Saw heavy combat, came back, a mess. And just slowly worked his way, out of that mess. But he does a podcast. I want to say it was he's on his second season. So you have to go back to the first season. And I don't remember what episode it was, but I got called out by my pastor, who was on my very first podcast, was my pastor, Pastor John Minton. And he was doing the 22 push-ups a day. And he was knocking them out, man. He was crushing them. And he called me out, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this, And so, but I'm so fat that after like the fourth day, I hurt my back and I couldn't do it anymore. And so, but then shortly after, I heard Doc's episode where he talks about that. And he doesn't condemn anybody. He says, hey, if that's what you want to do to bring awareness to this, that's awesome. I applaud you for it. But what are you doing on day 23? What are you doing on day 24? You know, how many of your battle buddies have you called? How many people you served with that you know struggled even before they left theater? How many of them are you calling and contacting, just to check on them? And so that is really important, And the other weird thing too, Keith, that is bizarre to me. Um, I went to a private Catholic military high school here in San Antonio, Central Catholic. And those guys that I went to school with are still my friends. They're still my close friends. And I can go 10 years without talking to one, pick up the phone, and it's like we had just seen each other yesterday. And I find at the military, in fact, one of my friends I'm going to Florida in March to visit two of my shipmates. The one I haven't seen since we decommed our ship back in the 90s, and Scott I talked to a lot. Scott just came back from deployment in November, and John said something the other day. He said, the thing about our kinship, our military service, is that we can pick up 10, 15 years down the road, and it's like we just saw each other yesterday. And so I think that's amazing, man. I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think generally speaking, yeah, it's pretty much like that. And I've actually got a group of friends that I was really close with growing up. We're kind of like that. And yeah, but some of the military buddies, yeah, it's a little different with everybody. I guess it depends on how close you actually work with them, all day, every day. But the bonds that you make with certain people, just it's hard to explain to a civilian, one way or another. Like I said, my first deployment was at a prison camp. There's a handful of people I was there with. We may not have even worked. A couple of them I didn't even work with every single day, but we were there and shared experiences between riots and escape attempts and indirect fire and all the craziness in between, because it was it was a crazy period. But anybody who I was with there, I mean, shared experiences. Not we called it, kind of pardon my language, but hell on earth. I mean, that's kind of the term that we had for the place. As you can imagine, it was pretty rough. But yeah, those bonds are tight. I just reconnected with one of the guys that I served with. We were stationed in Japan together. He was on the rotation ahead of me. Talked to him not long ago, and exactly, we hadn't talked on the phone in a good couple of years, and it was nice to just kind of catch up.
So let me ask you something, brother. I've listened to your podcast. I love it. I love what you're trying to do. And I want to ask you, if there's people listening tonight and maybe they're struggling, what advice would you give to them?
Reach out and get some help. Assess what your situation is, try to reach out in the right avenue. Whatever that problem is that you're facing, but reach out and get some help. There's a lot of organizations out there. My website's got some. There's other ones. Call the suicide hotline if it's a situation like that. Or if you just need to talk and you're just down, just pick up the phone and call a battle buddy and say, I need some help. I know there's Facebook groups where people put things out there to say, hey, I'm not feeling good. And I've literally seen in 5 minutes, 400 or 500 people saying, hey, call me, I'm here, message me, whatever. Just put it out there in whatever way works for you, and just get that help. I mean, there's tons of resources. Just use them, because you've got people that care about you, whether or not I know you or Jose knows you or anybody listening. We care about you, so get the help, and I'm sure you've got family or friends that are really close that really want to help, so just reach out.
Absolutely. I'm going to read a comment from my cousin who is a combat Marine. It says, it should start with EAS, train the vets how to turn the 110% down a little bit. Mentally, we go hard on things, and sometimes it can be a bad thing. And he's so on point. I didn't serve in combat, so I don't know. My worst day in the Navy was running out of money to go to the enlisted club before payday. I mean, that's how bad my it was.
Yeah, so you didn't get to drink that weekend, huh? Somebody gave you a bottle?
Out there begging your friends, man, for $20. They're like, yeah, man, I give you 20 for 40. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But that my cousin's on point there. I mean, especially you guys who had to go into theater, man, you're spun up like 110, 120, 150, 200%. And then when you come off of that, man, it's hard to slow down. So
I don't think you even realize like how much at certain points I never really thought I had problems or issues. And the buddy that I said I called not too long ago, he flat out told me in a conversation, I'll be open and honest about it. I've never went to any counseling at all until about 3 months ago, 3 months ago. And I realized over those last years, things were just drastically different, and I wasn't as busy because I wasn't on the road to all these meetings. Everything's on Zoom. Had a lot of extra time on my hands, and I got to thinking. And sometimes thinking's not good. And I realized I buried myself in work for years. I just went 100% into work because it kept my mind off of things. And I don't know if I have PTSD or not. I mean, I've talked to the counselor twice. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. My wife thinks I do. I kind of denied it for years. There's no way. Like, I don't have it, because you think of what the movies show you of choking your wife and punching holes in the walls and doing stuff like that. Well, that's not my life. But I do. I am alert sometimes, and I do react to situations in ways that are probably not appropriate, whether I'm snappy or I don't like to be. If I'm focused on something, I don't like something snapping my attention. I don't really like people behind me. I can't explain why in some of these cases, but it is what it is. And I realized that there was something to that. And I finally picked up the phone one day and called for a counselor. Like, well, what do you need? Do you need the suicide line? I said, no, I'm not suicidal, but I want to talk to somebody. Like, I got to talk to somebody other than my wife, because she knows most of these stories, but I don't really publicly tell some of those things. And I'm like, I just need to talk to somebody. And the first thing the lady told me was, just learn how to breathe. Just like, don't snap, don't get upset. Just count to 4 and you'll react better or get to a better place. Because I felt like I've handled some things. Like, I'll come down to my office where I'm at. If I start getting upset, I will just walk away from a conversation. I come down here and I close the door, and I get myself in a quiet situation where I can kind of think, just not have things going around and calm myself down. But when I was talking to my battle buddy, he's like, you've never, gotten any help? And I'm like, no. He goes, dude, after that place, and it's taken you 13 years, he's like, I'm glad you're finally talking to somebody. That's great. Good for you. So that's what I mean. I said earlier, just reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, no matter how you're feeling. If you saw some stuff and it's messed with your mind, or you realize that the way you react to things is probably not appropriate, then talk to somebody, because the things that you go through when you're, and I don't really consider myself a combat vet. Yes, I was in Iraq twice. Yes, I spent about 14 months of my life in a combat zone. Yes, I was shot at with indirect fire. Never got into a firefight or anything, but prison camp was crazy. It was weird. We had people stabbed. We had riots, escape attempts, indirect fire, all kinds of stuff. Probably got recalled or woken up in the middle of my sleep 3 or 4 times a week on average for something like that. And, all the way to the crazy little mind games. Actually, I'll tell a funny story on that one. So we had a senior that would get mad if there was any junk left in the 5-ton that we take to work every day. So a few months into the deployment, summer the months in Iraq, it's hot as heck. It's 120 degrees by breakfast. And we show up to work and we stand guard mount. Everybody posts out and you can just like hear him screaming. And we're like, what the heck? And come to find out, he found a Gatorade bottle in the back of the 5-ton. And he lost his mind. He's like, I find another one of these in here. You're all walking. You're walking to work. You're walking from work. And it was like 3/4 of a mile through the desert. There was one hard-packed road. Everything else was drifted sand. I mean, we were out in the middle of nowhere. Direct sun. I mean, I'd take 3 water bottles and a Gatorade, and it'd all be gone by the time I made it. I mean, everybody was just hydrating like crazy. And he did it. He did it multiple times. And it sucked. We hated it. I mean, it got to the point where somebody was in charge every day to clean that vehicle, make sure there wasn't a wrapper of anything left in there. But that's just some of the interesting stories there.
I'm gonna I'm going to share another comment with you because it goes along with what you were talking about just now. But Carrie says that she was in denial that she had PTSD for over 20 years until one day she made a decision like you did to deal with it in some form. And so, yeah, reach out. I'm not a combat vet, but listen, I can listen to anything you have to say, uh, just like anybody else can. And I'm willing to. And if all you need to do is just spill your guts, man, I'm the guy. I can keep my mouth shut. It has happened. My wife will argue that, but uh, but I can listen to you. But honestly, my phone number is on our website. I'm sure yours is too. On yours,
I've got a Facebook, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, everything for the podcast and my real estate. So it's not hard to find me. My phone number's out there on many websites, being in business, and I'm the same way. Call, text, message, direct message, whatever you want to call it, whatever the platform has, reach out.
definitely. So let me ask you this: if people want to watch your podcast, when do you air your podcast?
Well, I'm planning on doing mine kind of similar to you do, just live, fairly unscripted, and I'm going to do mine every other Wednesday.
Okay.
I haven't figured out exactly what that schedule is yet, but I'm going to put something on my website about when those are scheduled, just to make it a little bit easier, because it's, for me, it's not it's, I guess I'll say it's a hobby. It's a passion of mine, but it's something that I do have to put food on the table for my family. I do have other commitments, so I thought, okay, if I do it every other Wednesday, do it at night, record it, it's done. I don't have to do a whole lot of editing, do the audio editing, but that's a whole different story there. That's a pain in the, do any of that kind of stuff. I think we were talking about that the other day, but yeah, I'm done every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. is what I'm thinking of doing.
Good. So, again, I've got your and you can go, if you're watching the replay, make sure that you type in hashtag replay for us. And you can see the websites down here on the bottom of the ticker, www.battlebuddypodcast.net. And Keith's already got 6 episodes up. You can watch any one of them. And then I forgot to ask you in the beginning, but where are you? What is your home base? Where are you living?
I'm in the Peoria, Illinois area. So we're I'd say about smack dab right in the middle of between Chicago and St. Louis. We call it Central Illinois, but I'll be honest with you, there's about 4 other communities that call themselves Central Illinois. So somewhere in there.
And I've also got your website for your business. So if you're in the need of a realtor, or maybe it's not quite your area, but I'm sure Keith can probably refer you to somebody. And that one is www.mhghomes.com. And man, I just want to thank you for taking the time. I know that it's not easy to give up an hour of your Friday, just for the sake of chit chatting on Facebook for an hour with somebody who doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, it makes 2 of us that don't know what we're doing. And, this day and age where we're not face to face with a lot of people on a regular basis as comparatively as we used to be, it's good to sit down and chat with somebody. So I appreciate you having me on the show. It's been awesome.
Well, I'm gonna in the days and weeks to come, I'm gonna be bumping your websites. I want people to watch your show just like I want people to watch ours. If you're watching on YouTube, I can't ask you enough. Like, share, subscribe. The same thing with Keith. Get on his podcast site and like, share, subscribe. And those of you who are out there and you need somebody to talk to, you can hit both our websites. If you go to my website, thirddaycoffeeseguin.com, the first thing that pops up is the Veteran Crisis phone number. And so if you don't feel comfortable calling one of your boys or one of your girls, call that number. I mean, that's what it's there for. And that's what we're here for. There's all kinds of groups, like Keith said, all over Facebook and everywhere else. that, somebody is always willing to listen. I always, first time I talked to somebody who was in crisis, I didn't know what to say. And I asked him, I said, well, are you a believer? He said, yes, I am. I said, okay, well, I'm going to quote you this scripture because it's so relevant to anybody who's in crisis or not. And it's Joshua 1:9. And it's be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee wherever thou goes. And I try to explain that. And I've done a lot of research. I was taking seminary for a little while. I'm probably going to get back on that and finish that eventually. But I did a lot of study, and that is so important for all of us, especially those of us who are veterans. But for anybody, that verse just means that it doesn't matter if your family turns their back on you, if your friends turn your back on you, if your spouse leaves you, if your kids don't want to talk to you, it doesn't matter, because there is always one inexhaustible resource. And in our case, because we're veterans, we have a whole lot more resources, but somebody is always willing to listen to you. Somebody is always with you. You are absolutely never, ever, ever alone. And so I thank you again, Keith. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I hope that your podcast just blows up, and it's just more than you can handle, and you end up having to do it full time. So
Yeah, that'd be nice.
incredible.
Or get some people on, to give me a hand on different things. I'm up for whatever as long as it continues the mission. So
Absolutely, brother. Well, listen, again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I'm going to put you back in the green room. I'm going to close this, but sit tight for a
sounds
second.
good.
Then you and I will have a word before you go home. So hang on a second here. Okay, folks, that's it. That's a wrap. God Country Coffee for today, January the 22nd. Folks, we have a pot ton of interesting guests that are going to be coming on. I really appreciate Keith. He's got a great podcast. He's got a great mission, what he's trying to do. He's trying to help people. And, listen, we have to help one another out. That's what God requires of us. Um, that is our mission in life. The second that we surrender our life to Christ, we're commissioned to spread the word of God. And folks, treat one another the way God intended us to treat one another, with kindness, with love, with respect. Until next Friday on God Country Coffee, I love you guys. I'll see you then. God bless. Good night.